Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. I'm Charles Aniegolo, and I have a guest commentator with me for the rest of the program who will be giving his thoughts on the news and issues of the day. And he is, of course, the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Great to see you, Prof.
Thank you, Charles. Good to see you too.
Let's start in the most obvious place, which is Rivers State. So many different things happening from the legal side to now we're hearing that after the warring sides refused to listen to the approaches that were being made to them, that the president has finally managed to get Governor Fubara. And we're just hearing now that a peace agreement has been signed. Obviously, we don't know what that peace agreement contains and whether in fact it is true, but that's what we're hearing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most important thing is actually the political intervention, because it's not so much of legal fireworks or legal lease, but it's about understanding and tolerance, which can only be resolved through the political sphere. And it's very, very gratifying to see that elders, statesmen are wading in and trying to see how they can resolve this. With the president intervening, excellent. I understand the vice president was also at the meeting, with alongside the former governor of Rivers State, the respected Dr. Peter Odili. So that's what we need at this moment, Charles, because if you look at it generally, you just know that it's a clash of ego. The desire of one party to intimidate the other, and of course, the preparedness of another party to try to assert himself, to prevent himself from being micromanaged, and realizing the atmosphere, the governorship atmosphere around him. So these things were expected. We predicted these things. We anticipated it. But the regret is that it's coming too early in the day. And there's no amount of legal redress that you seek, and that we're going to come to a reasonable conclusion. We're just going to continue to put pressure on the judiciary, and by the time they begin to cave in negatively or inappropriately under those pressure, we'll turn around again and continue to blame the judiciary. Right. So it's going to be a welcome development if the crisis, the resolution of the crisis is taken out of the judiciary through the intervention of this political hemsmen, so that we can have peace.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And let me just bring to our audience this breaking piece of news that we were talking about earlier. We're hearing that the warring parties in Rivers State, they've signed a peace agreement at the presidential villa. Somebody told our correspondent that it's an 18-point communique, which includes Governor Fubara reconciling with defecting lawmakers. It was reached at the end of a meeting with the president. So, but we still have to interpret that, because when it says defecting lawmakers, does that mean that they're now going to be welcomed back into the State Assembly?
Do not forget that we still have subsisting court cases, which is why we're saying that it's better that these cases be discontinued. They should be taken after the forte of the courts, and let's have some kind of extra legal means of resolving them. But my fear again is that this is not the first time we're going to have a presidential intervention. We've had it before, it didn't really go anywhere. So it depends again on how fat some of these egos are, how the extent to which we can massage them.
Yeah, that is true. That's actually a very good point.
Otherwise, in the meantime, they may defer to the president and appear to sign. Signing is just a physical activity. What matters is how well they're able to comply with what they signed. But most importantly, Charles, it's also very critical that they realize that they have a function to perform. They have a duty, an assignment, and that's governance. The interest of the people, which they are obviously discountenancing. Because if they are not self-aggrandizing, if they realize that their position is a sacrificial one, where they are supposed to privilege the interest of the people above their own, they will probably undermine, their self-interest, their pride, their prestige, which is obviously ballooned, and that's why we are having these continuous, unnecessary, avoidable clashes. I think it's about time they realize this. In the interest of the good people of Rivers State.
But what do you think it is about Rivers State that makes political conflict almost inevitable. I was reading Chidi Amuta's article in This Day newspaper, suggesting that it dates back several centuries to when the slave trading warlords battled each other for control of trading routes, and that today the great-great-grandchildren of those warlords have become politicians and are still battling each other for control.
Well, I don't think it has to do with, maybe to a very large extent, I don't think it has to do with personality or historical traits. I also read a very interesting piece, similar to the one by Dr. Amucha, by Professor Adedayo, trying to make a historical excursion into the reason for the crisis, and asking that Wiki probably made a mistake, not trying to understand the historicity or the historical trait of an Ijaw person, as the case could be. Yes, these are interesting, references, no doubt, helping us to understand the present. But I think it also can be understood within the context of the political character that we are in. And that character, again, is something that is nested in what we described the other day as neo-patrimony. People just think that if you do not capture the levers of the state at the level of control, then you are undone, or you are not able to assert yourself. You will not be in a position to distribute favors. You will not be in a position to continue some kind of hegemony, which you think you necessarily must have until the end of time, until the end of your life. And it's actually a very big shame, because those positions that you are holding, or the influence that you wield, shouldn't be for your own interest, because you're not supposed to be an emperor. We're in a democracy. It's not a theocracy. Even in theocracies, even in monarchies, they still privilege the interest of the people above their own self. Otherwise, we won't be seeing development in Saudi Arabia, in United Arab Emirates, in Thailand, and some other states that has a character of monarchies and theocracies. But in our own case, we just think that if we do not have the power, then of course you are shut out of the material nests, which is the shame of our democracy, and which is why we'll continue asking our people to realize that they're not there for themselves, but for the interest for the people.
Absolutely.
The need for them to reverse the concentric circle of leadership.
Well, let's move away from that. We've got about a minute left, and it's a very tight, very precise 1 minute. Ambassador Joe Keshi, he was here talking a minute ago. Gaza, a graveyard for a Palestinian populace trapped by war, siege, death, and deprivation. Heartbreaking horror story. And he seems to think that it is all attributable to the intransigence of the Prime Minister Netanyahu. What do you think?
Charles, you and I have sat here the other day, and I remember we talked about the warning that President of America, Joe Biden, gave to Israel when he visited them, and he told them that, look, do not be blinded by rage, and that's what we appear to be seeing now. Over 20,000
rage and revenge.
That's right. Over 20,000 people dead, on both sides. Nearly 200 Israeli soldiers, about 20,000 Palestinians. This is just unimaginable, and it's a blight, an offense, to human sensibilities and sensitivities. And of course, what more can we do other than to continue to call for reason, because we're just creating a world of rage and anger and fury, in the future, not only in the present, because you have people who are still determined, because of the state of their minds, to create some kind of revenge in the future, which is not which is not the kind of thing I imagine the world needs.
Well, I mean, the point really is that, as you said, we understand that they're having talks again. Hamas and Israel. So let's hope something comes out of it. But I want to thank you very much indeed. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is a current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University in Abuja. Good to see you again.
My pleasure. Thanks, too.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.